Charlotte walked up the narrow lane of Tsukiji district, a letter of introduction from her old master damp in her hand. The deshi saw her coming.
Go home, Gaijin.
The hand-painted Norin curtain of Tanaka's shop swayed behind him. He planted himself like a locked gate. She held out the letter. 9 years of training in Tampa, written in careful calligraphy. He did not take it.
Master Tanaka does not train outsiders. He has accepted only 9 apprentices in 54 years, all born on Japanese soil. You waste your time.
Charlotte thought of her father, a black fishmonger from Louisiana, and her mother, Vietnamese, who taught her that a knife was a promise. The scars on her index finger, each earned in those 9 Tampa years, seemed to tighten as she clenched her fist.
He doesn't know what I am willing to give. Tomorrow, I will try again.
That night, she studied the photograph of her grandfather, a Vietnamese fisherman who survived the Mekong in 1975. He had not stopped.
I am not finished.
The next morning, Charlotte returned earlier, a smaller envelope from her own master pressed between her palms.
You again. I told you yesterday. Master Tanaka does not take outsiders.
She offered the new letter, written by the man who had trained her for 9 years. The deshi glanced at it, then tore it in half.
He never even read it. This isn't about letters.
Through the doorway, beyond the deshi's shoulder, she caught a glimpse of the shop interior, a glistening tuna case, a shadow moving behind a thin curtain.
Do you understand the lineage of this shop? The Tanaka name has been here since 1923. It cannot be diluted by an outsider.
Lineages can end if they don't grow. My grandfather knew that.
The deshi slid the door shut. The sound was final.
I will wait. That you cannot stop.
That evening, she walked back to her small rented room, knowing she would return before dawn, not with a letter, but with a plan to stay all day. On the 3rd morning, she arrived at 5 and crouched by the doorway, steam rising from her breath in the cold.
He cannot ignore me forever. Today, I become impossible to overlook.
The deshi opened the shop and stepped past her as if she were a stray cat. A fishmonger delivered glistening blue fin. At 7, Master Tanaka stepped out for the auction. He walked by her without a glance, as if she were part of the stone.
His eyes passed through me like I was made of fog, but I am not fog.
Through the curtain gap, she watched the rhythm of the knife inside. Lift, angle, draw. Her hand mimicked the motion on her knee. At 2, Tanaka returned. His sleeve brushed her shoulder as he passed. He did not pause, did not turn. The door slid shut.
His silence isn't refusal. It's a question. What answer does he need?
That night, she oiled her blade until it gleamed under the lamp. She would not wait at the door again.
No more waiting. Tomorrow, I walk through that door before they open. I cut.
She held the photo of her grandfather, who survived the Mekong in 1975. He had not waited for permission.
Permission is not required to prove yourself. Action is.
Her Tampa master once told her, a single perfect slice can silence any room. She ran the stone along the blade in long, quiet strokes, the steel singing under her thumb.
11 millimeters, Chitoro. One motion, no hesitation.
She rehearsed the cut in her mind. Find the grain, find the seam, breathe out, draw through.
The seam is where the muscle yields. That is the only place a knife belongs.
Before the auction, she wrapped her knife and stepped into the cold. The photo went with her, inside her coat.
This is the only way they will ever look, not at my skin, but at my cut. I walk in, I cut, and if I fail, I leave Tokyo by morning.
The door was unlocked. Charlotte slipped inside, the silence heavier than the cold outside.
Master Tanaka, I ask only to demonstrate one cut, one piece of saku, and I will leave.
From the darkness behind the curtain, a single, slow nod. Permission given wordlessly. She opened the glass case and lifted a chilled block of bluefin Chitaro its marbled grain faint in the overhead light.
There, the connective seam, soft as forgiveness.
She set the saku on the worn wooden board, the fibers aligned with the cutting edge. Her own yanagiba slid from its leather sheath with a soft metallic whisper.
11 millimeters. Find the grain, breathe out.
The deshi would return from the auction in 20 minutes. This was her only chance to be seen. She raised the blade, the edge catching a thin line of light, and settled it against the seam she had found. In one fluid draw of the blade, the chutoro parted. The motion was one clean sweep, 11 millimeters thick, the cross-section a sheet of wet glass. She lifted the slice with the tip of her knife and laid it on the small black lacquer plate. It glistened under the overhead lamp. The curtain rustled. Master Tanaka stepped into the dim light, his indigo apron swaying, his eyes fixed on the plate. He stopped in front of the board and leaned down, hands clasped behind his back. He did not speak. He did not move. The silence stretched to 90 seconds.
He sees the cut. He sees everything. Then why won't he say a word?
Who taught you?
My master in Tampa. For 9 years. A Japanese master.
You have the hands, but you do not understand what this shop requires of a person.
I don't understand. I showed him perfection. What else is there?
He turned and walked away, the Norin curtain falling behind him like a closed door. Charlotte stood in the silence, the perfect slice growing cold on the plate. Next morning, the door opened at her touch. The deshi pointed toward the small kitchen, stacked plates waiting. She washed dishes for 10 hours. The deshi watched from the doorway, arms crossed, his silence a blade. Weeks passed. She scrubbed pots, emptied ice, watched the knife work from a distance, never allowed to hold a blade.
I am here, but I am not here. He is testing something, but what?
In a corner shrine, a candle flickered under a black and white photograph. A young man receiving a knife from an older master. One evening, she lifted the photo. The young man's eyes were fierce, his hands calloused, receiving the blade with both hands.
Who is this?
Master Tanaka. Long ago. That is not for an outsider to ask about.
It was him. Young, tested. This is more than a lineage.
She wiped her hands and returned to the sink. The water was cold, but the photograph burned behind her eyes. The Tsukiji auction hall roared with bids. Charlotte carried an empty crate, invisible among the traders. An old fishmonger with a salt-crusted apron and warm eyes waved her over. His stall was stacked with the best bluefin.
You are the one who cut the chudoro in Tanaka's shop. This market knows everything that happens inside those walls. Then you know he still refused me. Even after my cut, Tanaka is a mirror. He sees himself in you. His own master refused him, said he lacked the humility to serve the fish. He lacked humility for months. Then one dawn, he cut a mackerel so perfectly that the old man wept and handed over his knife. That was 1959. The shrine photo. That is him receiving that knife. Yes, the blade he still wears. He has been waiting to do the same for someone.
Charlotte looked across the market floor. She finally understood. She was not being rejected. She was being measured. At the lunch rush, a regular VIP froze when he saw Charlotte wiping the counter. He jabbed a finger at her. The man's voice filled the shop. I will not eat anything that has been near a foreigner's hands. Remake it all.
Sato-san, please. Deepest apologies. I will prepare it myself.
Sato-san, if you cannot trust those who work under my roof, you may find another roof.
Master, he is our oldest customer.
Then he will learn new manners. Leave now.
The customers stormed out. The shop fell silent. Tanaka returned to his knife as if a breeze had passed through.
He just risked everything for me. A dishwasher. Why?
She finally saw it. His rejection had never been about her. It had been about preparing her. That night, she resolved to return to the fish market. Mr. Ito still had more to tell her about 1959. The next dawn, Charlotte found Ito arranging his stall. He took her arm and led her behind the ice bins.
You came back. Good. Sit. I will tell you the part that is not written anywhere.
In 1959, a young Tanaka stood outside this same market district, outside a master's door, refused day after day.
Then, one morning before the auction, he slipped inside. Like you, he asked only to cut a mackerel.
In near darkness, he found the connective seam and drew the blade. The mackerel slice fell open like a silver flower. The master wept.
The old master untied his knife from his belt and placed it in Tanaka's hands. The shop became his. He was the first outsider accepted in that lineage. Tanaka has been looking for someone who would fight the same way. Not just cut fish, fight tradition. He sees his young self in me. He is waiting for the same proof.
She finally had the shape of the test. A cut was never enough. It required the will to push through a locked door.
Then I will ask for a formal evaluation. Whatever his terms, I will meet them.
After closing, Charlotte knelt on the tatami of the empty shop, her forehead touching the woven straw.
Master Tanaka, I request a formal evaluation. Let me show you everything I have learned in 9 years.
Tanaka stepped from behind the screen, his eyes unreadable, hands clasped behind his back.
If you fail, you will leave this shop and never return to Tokyo. Do you accept this condition?
I accept.
The deshi, watching from the kitchen doorway, stiffened. No outsider had ever been granted this trial.
You will prepare a sashimi platter from a whole fish with your own knife tomorrow morning before the auction.
A whole fish, not a pre-cut block. The margin for error was 0.
He wants to see if I can start from the beginning, not just cut, but create.
She rose, bowed once more, and walked into the street. The morning already felt like a verdict. At 4 a.m, Charlotte lifted a whole sea bass from the ice. Its scales still mirrored the auction house lights. She laid it on the board and drew her yanagiba. Mid-slice, the blade hesitated against a hidden bone, then skidded across the skin. A faint, ragged nick opened on the silver side. She did not stop. She breathed out, realigned the angle, and finished the fish. 6 slices lay on the platter, 5 perfect, 1 slightly uneven. She carried the plate to the counter. Her knuckles were white, her face set. Tanaka leaned over the plate, hands behind his back. The silence stretched past 60 seconds.
1 torn edge. After 9 years, 1 torn edge and I lose everything.
His eyes moved from the uneven slice to the fish, then to the door. He turned without a word. The Norin curtain rustled. The shop fell silent. Charlotte did not move. 9 years of training, 3 days of waiting, 1 perfect cut earlier, all erased by a single nick. In her rented room, Charlotte rolled her yanagiba into the leather case. Each fold was a surrender.
9 years, 1 nick. Tomorrow, Houston.
A knock. Mr. Ito stood in the doorway, fish scales still clinging to his rubber boots.
Tanaka never looked at your torn slice. He watched your hands after the slip. They steadied. That is what he was waiting for. A perfect cut can be taught in a year. Recovery cannot be taught at all.
He placed the shrine photograph on her table. Young Tanaka receiving the knife in 1959.
That boy was refused for months. He cut a mackerel at dawn and was accepted. Then he waited 54 years to do the same for someone.
Her own grandfather's photograph lay beside the knife roll, his tired eyes full of the Mekong.
He is waiting for someone who will not stop, but I stopped tonight.
She loosened the knife roll. The blade caught the lamplight. She did not pack it again. She set her grandfather's photograph next to the young Tanaka's, 2 men who had not stopped.
He survived the Mekong with nothing but his hands. He did not wait for permission. Tanaka cut that mackerel in the dark. He was the first outsider. He sees himself in me. I stopped tonight. I believed a nick was the end, but a nick is not an ending. One more cut. If he throws me out, I leave, but I will not leave without asking.
She slid the Yanagiba into its narrow sheath, its edge still mirror bright from the stone. The photograph of her grandfather went into her coat pocket, over her heart.
I will walk in again. I will cut again. This time, I will not wonder what he sees.
The lane was dark, fog curling around the paper lanterns. She walked toward the shop. The sign above Tanaka's door was still dark. She stood 10 feet from it, waiting for morning. The door slid open without resistance. Tanaka stood behind the counter, a single bluefin saku already on the worn board.
Cut.
She did not bow, did not speak. She crossed the floor, unrolled her Yanagiba, and ran her thumb across the edge. The blade found the seam without hesitation. The chutoro parted in one silent draw, 11 millimeters thick, the cross-section a sheet of wet glass. She lifted the slice onto the black lacquer plate with the tip of her knife and stepped back, hands loose at her sides. Tanaka leaned over the plate, hands clasped behind his back. The silence stretched until the dust in the light stood still.
Now you understand the weight of waiting. Stay.
Charlotte's chest rose once, a decade compressed into one breath. She did not trust her voice. She knelt beside the counter, head bowed. The first true morning light slipped through the Norin curtain and wrapped around her shoulders. The weeks folded into months. Charlotte stood beside Tanaka at the board each dawn, her hands learning the weight of his silence. She learned to sharpen blades in the near darkness, the same way he had once sharpened mackerel before dawn.
You have sharpened this blade correctly. I will not have to redo it.
He did not smile, but he did not scowl. The deshi was learning to see her not as an outsider, but as a fixture. Customers began to ask for the black chef by name. She replied in Japanese, then in English, and the shop stretched its walls. Tanaka watched from the doorway, arms folded, a rare tiny curve at the corner of his mouth.
He trusts my hands now, but that knife on his belt, it has my name nowhere on it.
One evening after closing, Tanaka sat alone at the counter, turning the old photograph over in his fingers. She wiped the counter silently, watching him. She knew some tests are not about a cut. She did not ask for the knife. She waited. One winter morning, Tanaka did not appear. The deshi stood at the door, face drawn, and said nothing.
He is 81. This silence is heavier than any word he ever spoke to me.
For a week, Charlotte and the deshi ran the shop without him. She bought the fish, kept the blades sharp, the case glistening. The deshi said nothing, but he stopped checking her work after the 3rd day. Tanaka returned before dawn on the 8th day, thinner, his indigo apron hanging loose on his frame. He walked to the case, opened it, and ran a finger along the rim. No dust. He closed it without a word. That evening, after the last customer, he lit incense at the small shrine and knelt for a long time.
He is saying goodbye to something. That knife won't stay at his belt forever.
She did not approach him. She finished closing the shop, counting the day's tickets as if nothing had changed. The knife still hung at his belt when he rose, but something in the shop had settled, like a stone finding its level. The shop was closed for the first time in 60 years. Only a handful stood inside. The deshi, Mr. Ito, the fishmonger who had watched this circle form.
When I was young, my own master refused me for months. I was the outsider. Then one dawn, I cut a mackerel, one cut, and he placed this knife in my hands.
He pulled the Yanagiba from its leather sheath, the steel that had been forged for his grandfather. In 1948 caught the candle flame.
I have waited 54 years to do for another what my master did for me. Charlotte.
She stepped forward, hands open. He laid the blade across her palms, the same gesture he had received in 1959. Tears slid down her dark bronze cheeks. She did not wipe them.
You have already learned. Now stay.
I will stay. I will honor both your name and my grandfather's. Thank you.
The Deshi, who had once said, "Go home," Gaijin lowered his head and bowed deeper than any apprentice had bowed to her before. The ceremony ended, but the blade remained in her grip, warm from his hands. The shop was hers. After the guests left, Tanaka motioned her toward the shrine. He lifted the knife from her hands and pointed to a faint mark on the tang.
My grandfather's name, forged in 1948. The only thing that survived the war. I was born with this steel in my family.
Then, from behind the shrine figurines, he pulled a yellowed paper, folded to the size of a coin.
My master's refusal letter, 1959. He wrote that I lacked humility. I read it every year to remember.
He kept the pain. To remind himself that the door he opens must never close. My grandfather was a fisherman on the Mekong. He escaped the war with nothing but a photograph. That is my refusal note.
Tanaka took the faded photo gently and set it beside his own note on the shrine.
2 fishermen. Both refused. Both wanted. This shop will carry both names now.
They bowed to each other, foreheads nearly touching, the knife and the note between them. The Yanagiba lay across the wooden stand beside the refusal note, 2 keepers of the same story. Charlotte mixed the ink herself. Her brush painted the new name across the wooden board, Tanaka Nguyen Sushi, the Norin curtain of deep indigo. Swayed once as it was hung, both family names stitched in gold thread. A young woman from Thailand knelt at the doorway, her letter of introduction trembling in her hand.
Come in. We have much to teach each other.
The bilingual menu rested on every table. Japanese on the right, English and Vietnamese on the left. Customers smiled over plates of chutoro, their chopsticks speaking a language everyone understood. One evening, Tanaka sat in the far corner, a single piece of mackerel before him, watching the room.
He still tastes his own cut. Every evening, the mackerel that started everything.
Outside, the lanterns lit the new sign. Inside, the Yanagiba waited on its wooden stand, beside 2 folded photographs. The door was open. Years passed. One morning, a tall black woman stood outside Tanaka Nguyen Sushi, a letter shaking in her hand. The door slid open. Charlotte stood in the frame, the Yanagiba still at her belt, her eyes calm.
Come in. We have much to learn.
The young woman bowed deeply, the same letter now damp with relief. The Norin swayed behind them, both family names catching the sun. Inside the shop, the old refusal note still rested beside the Yanagiba on its wooden stand. In the far corner, a very old man sipped tea, a single slice of mackerel untouched on his plate. He nodded once.
Some doors never close. They just learn how to open wider.
The shop hummed with the sound of a blade against a stone, a new apprentice learning the weight of steel. The door was open. It would never close again. The Yanagiba lay across its wooden stand, the same blade forged in 1948, passed from one outsider to another. Beside it, the refusal note remained folded, the yellowed paper a testament to a door once slammed shut. Tanaka had kept it for 54 years, a private relic of the morning. His master wept and handed over the knife. He never spoke of it, but every apprentice saw him touch it before lighting the incense. The steel, the note, the shrine, all silent witnesses to a promise he made to himself, that one day he would be the one to open the door, not with a word, but with a single cut. And on that morning when Charlotte knelt and received the blade, the circle closed. The note remained, not as a wound, but as proof that every weight ends when the right hands arrive. The knife never needed to be buried with him. It had found its next beating heart. He had waited 54 years.